A little bit, we're going to look at some beans, but just to touch back on the corn, as far as frost damage is concerned, the growing point is below ground until V5 for corn. So as long as that growing point is not damaged, the corn will grow back if there is frost damage on that tissue above ground. But with beans, right here we're looking at some beans that have their unifoliate leaves unrolled right here. So just this unifoliate. They don't have a trifoliate with 3 leaves out yet, but these are more susceptible to frost damage because the growing point for soybeans is above ground as soon as they come out of the ground. So here we've got the cotyledon leaves, and here's your unifoliate. More than likely, what's going to happen, this unifoliate leaf on both sides, we might see some frost damage there, and they would fall off. But since we still have these cotyledons and your growing point down here, they would be able to grow back. If that frost damage would kill the plant below the cotyledons down here on the stem, we would be able to see a discoloration. If it killed it below there, then the beans would not grow back and they would be dead. If one of these cotyledons would get frosted but not the other, then we would still have a growing point on one side of the plant to grow back. So there's a lot of different variables when we're looking at frost damage and what is going to happen after the fact and how it's going to recover. But with beans, the typical symptoms, they'll be water soaked and discolored leaves. You may see a discolored band around the stem. For the beans that are just coming up and their necks are just pushing through the ground, there's a good possibility that they can have quite a bit of damage. If that neck gets broke off or if it gets frosted right at the soil surface, that growing point is at the bottom of that crook. If you can see my hand, the beans usually come up in a crook shape and the growing point is usually below that. So if it kills the neck coming out of the ground, the growing point is on top of that. It looks like it's below it, but that would kill that plant. All in all, the best way to know if you have frost damage or not, you can come out right after the frost event the next day, the next morning, and look and see what the crop looks like, what the symptoms are. But the best way to really evaluate and know what the extent of the damage is and what the repercussions are and what you have to do in the future is to come back about 3 days after. Because if there was any frost damage, the new tissue should start growing back by then. So if it got frosted off completely to the ground with corn, you should be able to see possibly some new growth coming, or if half of the plant was damaged, you should be able to tell if it's going to survive or not. Same with beans. If you saw water-soaked areas and it looked like the plant had died right after the event, if you get a few days after that and come out and reevaluate, you should be able to see the leaf colors change. If it was just slightly damaged and not killed, you'll see that new growth coming back, or the damaged parts may have fallen off, and then you can tell what's left and where you can go from there.